The first signal reached Earth as a whisper hidden inside cosmic noise, an anomaly that made astronomers argue for weeks before anyone dared to say the word intelligent. It was not a greeting or a warning, but a map. Coordinates folded in dimensions humanity had only begun to theorize, pointing toward a place where stars bent into a slow, deliberate spiral, like a galaxy pausing to observe itself. Dr. Elias Rourke was the one who noticed the pattern repeating every 72 hours. He was not the loudest voice in the room, nor the most decorated scientist, but he had a habit of listening longer than others. When the realization struck him, it felt less like discovery and more like recognition, like hearing a melody he had once known in a dream. Within months, the United Earth Council authorized first contact. The Odyssey crossed into alien space on engines humming with experimental physics and human hope. Elias stood at the observation deck when the stars shifted color, bleeding into hues no human language had names for. That was when the ship's sensors detected the flotilla, vast, elegant vessels arranged not in formation, but in symmetry, as if space itself were part of their architecture. And at the center of it all waited the Luminar Empire. They were not conquerors. They did not threaten. They welcomed. The Luminar were tall, luminous beings whose skin shimmered like pearl beneath starlight. Their eyes reflected entire constellations, and their voices carried harmonics that vibrated through bone and thought alike. To humanity's surprise, they spoke not only through sound, but through emotion, images and feelings woven gently into the mind. At their heart stood Princess Althira. She was the heir to the Luminar throne, born beneath a rare stellar convergence believed to bind fate itself. To her people, she was more than royalty. She was a living symbol of balance between reason and compassion, tradition and change. Yet when she first saw Elias Rourke, standing stiffly in his Earth uniform, her luminous eyes widened not with curiosity, but with something dangerously close to awe. Althira had seen him before. Years earlier, during a forbidden experiment, she had touched the edges of the multiverse, peering into branching futures as the galaxy flowed past like a river of light. In one fragile strand, she had seen a human man staring at the stars with longing rather than fear. She had not known his name then, only the feeling he carried, loneliness wrapped in stubborn hope. Now he stood before her. The first meeting between humans and Luminar passed peacefully, yet beneath the ceremonial words and diplomatic smiles, something ancient had begun to stir. Althira found herself drawn to Elias's questions, not about power or technology, but about Luminar art, their stories, the way they mourned their dead. He, in turn, was captivated by her presence, not her beauty alone, but the gravity of her silence, the way she listened as though every word mattered. Their conversations grew longer, then private. The galaxy noticed. Whispers spread through the Luminar court. A human, fragile and short-lived, walking beside the future empress. Elders warned of imbalance. Prophets argued over fractured visions. The alliance with Earth was already controversial. This was something else entirely. When Althira announced her intention to bond with Elias, the court erupted. You would bind the throne to a species that still fights itself over soil and symbols, one elder thundered. And you would deny fate because it frightens you, Althira replied, her voice steady as a star at dawn. The Luminar bond was not mere marriage. It was a convergence of minds and life forces, a vow that echoed through neural light and quantum memory. Never in recorded history had it been shared with an outsider. On Earth, the reaction was no quieter. Governments panicked. Religious leaders argued. Social networks burned with debate. Some called Elias a traitor to humanity. Others called him humanity's greatest ambassador. He received threats and prayers in equal measure. Elias himself felt only fear, not of the galaxy's judgment, but of failing her. "I am human," he told Elthyra one night as they stood beneath the artificial stars of the Luminar capital. "I will age. I will weaken. I will die long before you." Elthyra placed her glowing hand over his heart, feeling its frantic rhythm. "Stars are born knowing they will collapse," she said softly. "Yet they still burn." The middle days before the union were filled with trials. Elias underwent luminar rites to prepare his mind for the bond, tests of memory, empathy, and will. He was forced to relive his regrets, his failures, the quiet grief of his parents' deaths, the moments when he had chosen safety over courage. Elthyra stood with him through all of it. In return, she revealed to him the weight she carried, the loneliness of being seen as destiny rather than person, the fear that her people loved the symbol more than the soul beneath it. Elias did not try to fix her pain. He simply shared it, that, more than anything, convinced the galaxy something unprecedented was unfolding. On the eve of the wedding, a final challenge emerged. A faction within the Luminar, calling themselves the Pure Continuum, attempted to disrupt the bond ceremony. They believed the union would fracture the Empire's harmony and weaken their connection to the cosmic flow. Their sabotage caused a rupture in the ceremonial spire, destabilizing the energy lattice that powered the capital. The galaxy held its breath. Elias was the one who ran into the collapsing light field, guided by Elthyra's voice echoing in his mind. He did not understand Luminar technology fully, but he understood sacrifice. Using his own neural interface, he bridged the failing lattice, anchoring it long enough for Elthyra to stabilize the core. The act nearly killed him. When he awoke, Elthyra was beside him, her light dimmed with exhaustion and fear. She pressed her forehead to his, and for the first time, their thoughts intertwined without ritual. The bond had already begun. The wedding took place at the galaxy's edge, where 1,000,000,000,000 stars curved like an amphitheater. Representatives from countless species attended, their ships forming a silent halo around the ceremonial world. Earth watched through every screen it possessed. Elias wore no crown. Elthyra wore no armor. They stood equal beneath the cosmic veil. As the vow was spoken, the galaxy responded. Waves of light rippled outward, carrying the resonance of their bond across star systems. Ancient observers recorded fluctuations in dark matter. Long-dormant relics activated. Even distant civilizations felt something shift, an inexplicable sense that the universe had chosen a new direction. When the ceremony ended, Elthyra was no longer only a princess. She was empress. And Elias Rourke, once an unassuming astronomer, became the first human consort of the Luminar throne. Their rule was not without struggle. There were political storms, cultural fractures, moments when love alone felt insufficient. Elias aged as predicted, his hair silvering beside Elthyra's unchanging glow. Yet through every year, their bond deepened, not as fantasy, but as shared labor. Together, they forged treaties that valued understanding over dominance. They opened Luminar knowledge not as a weapon, but as a gift. Earth changed. So did the Empire. When Elias felt his time nearing its end, he did not fear it. On a quiet world bathed in starlight, he lay beside Elthyra. Their minds joined as they had been for decades. "Did we do enough?" he asked. Elthyra smiled, a human expression she had learned just for him. "The galaxy watched," she said, "and it learned." When Elias passed, the stars dimmed for one full rotation of the galaxy. But the bond did not break. Elthyra carried his memory not as grief, but as guidance. In every decision, every act of mercy, Elias's humanity lived on. And in time, stories spread across the cosmos, not of a princess who married a human, but of a galaxy that dared to believe unity could begin with love. And somewhere, among the stars that still bent and listened, the universe remembered the moment it changed, not with war or conquest, but with a vow spoken between two fragile, luminous hearts.